Hello, welcome back to Deconstructing with Dawn. This is my second attempt at doing this video. About halfway through it, a cat interrupted, so I didn't know that, and now I have to do the whole thing all over again. Anyway, I'll try to keep it short and sweet this time. Sorry for the camera setup. My son likes to use the fancy stuff, and he's home babysitting me, so I let him do that. So hopefully you can hear me, and hopefully you can see me. I can't see what I'm talking to, though. So anyhow, I have 3 things to share with you guys. I will try to keep it short and sweet so it's not going on forever. However, if you're here for like unboxings or whatever, that's not what this is going to be about. It's going to be about DNA related stuff. So if you're not into that, you can just move on and I'll see you next time. Anyway, so the first thing is, I know that you guys have heard me ramble on about the gatekeeper of my 2 youngest brothers. I thought we were developing a relationship in which she was eventually going to let me meet my brothers. Now, mind you, they're not kids. They are 30 and 35, so they're not children. There should be no reason to have a gatekeeper involved, but as is the case with a lot of these DNA situations, there's always seems to be somebody that has to meddle. And I have this woman. She's not married to my father. She was not married to my father. She's simply the youngest 2's mother. However, in backtracking, 2 years ago I found out I have a different father, right? And pretty early on I found that I had 2 brothers and possibly 5. Those 2 brothers are, they still live at home with this gatekeeper, and their mother, that gatekeeper, was contacted by my aunt, who is the sister of my brother, and she told her that, all about me and that kind of thing, and then this gatekeeper asked that I not contact my brothers. She wanted to let them know, and that she didn't want to have my father come around, and so she feared him and that kind of thing, and I understood that. I was compassionate in that. I would have waited forever, but just circumstances beyond my control kind of intervened, right? And so around October, she contacted me, which I've told you guys all this about, and we kind of communicated off and on. We'd have hours-long conversations. We seemed to get along well. However, it took me a while to come to the realization, because I'm a naive idiot, that she seemed to be manipulating me and only wanted information from me. Never, ever did she give me any information, right? And so it was kind of like a one-sided kind of thing. I would have gone to the ends of the earth to give her the information, because I am a researcher, and I share everything I find with anybody. Anybody wants to know about it, I'll let you know about it, and she just kept pumping me for information. I had given up looking for my father, so I didn't know where he was at that particular point, and she wanted to know if I could find him, so I found him. I know where he is right now. I even Googled a picture of his house, so I know where he's at. Still haven't seen him and not met him and not contacted him. I don't care. But she wanted me to then write him a letter, and I really wasn't sure about that. And she wanted to manipulate the way I was going to talk in the letter, but then tells me, oh, say what you want to say. So I wrote a letter to him, I read it to her, and then she's like, no, I don't want you to say this, I don't want you to say that. And I said, well, then I don't want to write him. If I can't be open with him, I don't care, and I don't care to know him. So I knew then there was a little bit of a problem, because she wanted me to contact him. She wants to know where he's at. She wants to have him come around, I secretly think, because she has mentioned, I'll always love him and all that kind of stuff. But I just don't understand all of that. Anyway, so right there I kind of noticed a little bit of a shift. And then I started to realize she's manipulating me, idiot. And so at that particular point, I started to back off. And I still sent a message saying, Merry Christmas, Happy Thanksgiving, whatever. But then she wouldn't respond. The only time she would respond is when she wanted something from me. So, I started to learn, you idiot, you're being manipulated. So, cut to Christmas. I go to the family Christmas. There's a billion people there. I really didn't talk with too many people. I kind of like stood up against the wall and just observed and, try to match these faces to all these names I've learned, through Ancestry. And, but I ended up talking to a cousin, and as we're talking, we're just talking matter-of-factly. I'm telling her about DNA and explaining, just the ins and outs of it. And I don't think being cold and calculating, because I've invested 2 years of my life into this. I loved each of these people on the tree before I even met their faces. They had no idea I existed, but yet I knew them, and invested in each and every one of them every time I brought up a new name, And so she, we were just talking, and she was lovely, gave me information that I didn't even have, so I had a good conversation with this cousin. I talked to my aunt in the kitchen for just a little bit, like maybe 5 sentences, right? And 2 of those sentences had to do with the gatekeeper. Well, behind her was somebody sitting there who overheard us talking. My aunt said basically that she needs to get over this. And I said, well, I'm just going to move on with people that I actually, that care about me and want to know me. And that's all I said. Well, that person then goes back to the gatekeeper and says that I said all of that. And I would never say that she needs to get over it because I understood where she was coming from, that she was scared and that, she didn't want this man around, although she was giving me mixed signals about that. I would never have said she needs to get over it. A woman's abuse is a woman's abuse. I would never be cold and calculating and say, oh, she needs to get over it. My aunt said that. And that's because they've dealt with it for 30 years with her. So they kind of are like, they're done, get over it. I never said that, but this person went and told her that I did, and I did not. This person said I seemed to be cold and calculating about the whole thing, and I wasn't. I mean, me and this cousin were just chit-chatting. I don't know. I mean, if cold and calculating means that you're researching people on a family tree and you want facts, you want to see birth certificates, death certificates, census data, if that makes you cold and calculating, well then yeah, I'm guilty. But I don't know why that would be an issue with them, Anyway, so basically cut to Friday. I get a message from the gatekeeper and she just annihilates me, saying how cold and calculating I am, that we're more than people on data, which I get that, that they are, that how dare I talk about her personal business. I did not. We said like 5 sentences and I never said anything bad about her. That was the only time she was ever even talked about. And she accused me of saying what my aunt said. And I was like, I didn't say any of that, So basically, she accused me of being cold and calculating, that I better not hurt my brothers, the new ones that I found, that I've told you guys about, that I finally found 5 brothers, that I better not hurt them, and that it was rude of me to tell them that their last name was different. Well, our father created an alias and named his children this alias. There are 6 of us. I can't hold up my other hand. There's a total of 6 of us, and not one of us have his last name because he created an alias. Anyway, so she just let me have it. And I was so upset and worked up and just beside myself. I started having chest pains and I let her have it. I wrote back and was very factual and cold and calculating for sure, and saying basically at the end that, my life is not worth, life is too short, my life is not worth this drama, and if that means having to deal with you to contact my brothers, then I don't want anything to do with it. Maybe someday I'll meet them, but if not, I don't care anymore. And that's the way I left it, and it was upsetting to me so badly because throughout this whole thing, I didn't care about meeting my father. I gave up the right to meet my father to please her because I thought in the long run I would get to meet these brothers, right? And now I have 5, and I'll probably never know those 2 because of her. So cut to the next day. I had already found these 5 brothers, and if briefly, if you need to know, 2 years ago I found out my father was not my father, and in doing so I found that immediately I found 2 brothers, and then later found out I had 5. It took me 2 whole years to find the other 3, so now I have 5 that I've found. I contacted the one, and we immediately just hit it off, the oldest of the 5 actually, and he's a scientist, so he understands all this kind of stuff, and it's just been amazing. And I had already worked out with him to meet him the next day on Saturday. We'd already arranged this in November, and so I was already having chest pains from dealing with her, and then it began to hurt the left side of my chest and my arm. And my stomach is now hurting because I'm excited to meet my brother, right? And so he lives about 2.5 hours away. 3 of them, well, I'm sorry, no. There's 5. 4 live in California, 1.5 hour away and 2.5 hours away, and the other one lives in another state. So I'd agreed, to meet with this one, and all worked out. My stomach hurts. He says he's nervous, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, I'm waiting for him, and we just lock eyes, and all of it fell away. And I've explained to you before that when you cross the threshold of my family's door, it just feels like all that nervousness just goes away. You feel welcomed and comforted, right? One of you lovely people told me about a quote that the blood calls, and that's what it's like. And so as soon as we met, he gave me this biggest hug, and it was gone. All that feeling was gone. it was still hard for me to breathe. Like when I would take a deep breath, my chest would hurt. But we, chit chatted, walked around for like 4 hours, talked, and just had a lovely day, And he had dinner plans, so then we cut it short. I mean, 4 hours is not short, but we cut it short at that point. So because he had dinner plans with a new girlfriend. So, and he, was excited about that. So I didn't want to interrupt that at all. So he goes to dinner. We then go home, and I can't drive because I'm feeling so bad. And I also couldn't drive because I just got these prism glasses on Friday. And that's the whole start of this. Was I got the DNA test because I was losing my vision. And I thought maybe if I could find out genetically why I was losing my vision, that would help. It ends up not being the case whatsoever, but the eye doctor gave me these prism glasses, and it's supposed to even out the peripheral and central loss or something, and they make me sick. Now they're not nearly as bad, but Friday I put them on a couple of times and was almost going to barf each time. So now I'm getting used to them, but my chest was hurting and I just couldn't drive. So my husband drove us home, and on the way home his brother calls, and there is just all kinds of drama with his brother who's in trouble, and we didn't know this until that night that he's paranoid schizophrenic, and so a lot of stuff happened, and he just is battering my husband for days, like all week long. He's just been attacking my husband. He has a lot of guilt because their mother died a year ago, and it was largely his fault because he put her in this home. And there's just a big story there. And anyway, so he hung up on my husband. Like the entire time we're meeting with my brother, my husband's having to stand up, take a call, go away, take a call, and then he gets hung up on. And so I'd had enough of that. He'd ruined my day, and I'd had enough of it. And so he's yelling at my husband about something, and I said, "It's the truth." And all of a sudden, he attacks me, and it just made me even worse. Like I couldn't breathe. It was just hurting so bad. And I didn't tell my husband anything until the next day. My husband's like, "We need to be ready at this time. I have a surprise." And my husband never does any surprises. So it's crazy that he doesn't get one over on me ever. He never plans anything. Well, we start to head to an area that I start to recognize as my favorite restaurant. And I thought, well, that's nice. You wanted to have dinner at my favorite restaurant. And I'm like, oh my God, my chest is killing me. And now it's kind of like localized into one area. And so I was thinking that either it was my bones were aching or that I had busted a wire, because I've had open heart surgery. And when I busted a wire the last time, it hurt on my right side. Your wires are only in the center. So why it hurt on the right, I don't know. But it hurt like heck on the right side the last time. So I thought maybe I busted one on the left side, but maybe it's hurting on this side because it was like centralized. Whatever. I don't know what I was thinking, but anyway, so we get to the restaurant, I use the restroom, I come out, and I recognize one of my best friend's husbands, and I've never met him before, but I recognize him from Facebook, and I'm like, wait, and all of a sudden my best friend turns around, and we have not physically seen each other in probably 30 years. We communicate on Facebook like lots of people do, but it was just, ultimately, my husband, she had suggested let's get together, and they had, in December, I guess, had worked out this dinner, and so I'm so glad that I didn't say let's just go to the hospital. So I would have missed out on such an amazing surprise. And we had such a lovely dinner, good food, and at my favorite restaurant. And the reason why it's my favorite restaurant and my children's favorite restaurant is because her father had taken us to there, I don't know, like 37 years ago or something, and I just love the place. And so it's always been my favorite restaurant, my kids' and to meet her there, her father introduced us to that place, and she brought her brother, which I had not seen in even longer than 30 years. We used to terrorize this poor guy. We were, preteen kind of kids, and he was a teenager. We were just awful. So it's nice to see him as an adult, and to meet her husband, and my husband and her husband, we just chatted away, and it was so nice, and especially since, I think in my last video I was rambling on about how my friends, aren't supportive, and it wasn't my best friends, it was my local friends that had been just unsupportive, and oh, your illness has hurt me too much, so I can't contact you, that kind of thing. And I felt so wounded by all that, and to have my actual best friends care and to make up a surprise like that, that trumped all that unwanted feelings of my other friends, and made me realize again that these three girls that have been my best friends for upwards of nearly 40 years. They're the ride or die. They're the ones that matter the most. And all these other people are acquaintances. And I've kind of like distanced myself from them. And I don't want anything to do with people that don't want to invest in me. I don't want to invest in them. And I'm so glad that these three women, these girls to women, have been through it all. And I'm so blessed because of them. And to have not seen her for 30 years and just pick right up, it's just amazing. And I'm so thankful for that. And don't want to cry because every video I cry. But it meant the world. And so I'm so thankful for that. And that they surprised me, which nobody surprises me. That's even another blessing. So that was fantastic. And the whole time we were sitting there, it kind of hurt, but, it wasn't as bad. And so it seems like every time I distracted, it didn't hurt anymore. So that was great. And then on the way home, about a half hour away from home, all of a sudden it just started oh God, it feels like my heart is going to be ripped out of my chest. And I was having a really hard time to breathe. So much so when we got home, I couldn't lift a laundry basket. I had to have my husband lift it because my left arm just wouldn't even work. And I finally told my husband, there's something wrong. And so I took a pain medication, which I try never to take them because they make me very sick. And I'm allergic to most of them. And so if I have to take a pain medicine, I have to take an anti-nausea medicine, and that's bad. And just all kinds of stuff. So I actually took one on Sunday night, and it kind of I couldn't lay all the way down because I was having the chest pains. And it was a pretty miserable night, and I have insomnia anyway, so all you do is focus on the pain. And so finally Monday, my husband goes to work, and I went to urgent care. And I didn't even have to wait in the waiting room. They're like, no, get back in there. They took me back, did the EKG, and I had a heart attack. So they wanted to ambulance me to our local hospital, and it's the month of January. There's no beds ever at our local hospitals, and my mom died at this hospital in January after laying in the hallway for a bed for 3 days. So that was not going to happen. I was not going to go to our hospital. So I signed out AMA. They wouldn't let me drive, so I had to wait for my husband to get brought over from his boss drove him over, and he drove me down to the actual hospital of our insurance and was taken right back to emergency. They did a CAT scan with the dye stuff, and I did not have any clots. They did 2 more EKGs, and yes, I had a heart attack. They did the enzyme, which you take when your heart is under duress, you get these enzymes that are created, and it showed that I had a heart attack. And so yeah, I had a heart attack. Then they couldn't figure out if it was a type 1, type 2. There's 5 types of heart attacks. Number 1 is a classic, clogged arteries, that kind of thing. And I've always had really good blood pressure, really good cholesterol, no diabetes, all that kind of stuff. So I've never been worried about ever a type 1 heart attack. And so they just couldn't figure out it. The EKG kept looking like a type 1. And so they just kept doing all these tests. They did an echo. There was some fluid around my heart, but it didn't show that it was damaged in the sense of a major heart attack. Ultimately, they admitted me. The cardiologist admitted me, and I was in emergency room for 20 hours before I actually got a bed. And then I no sooner got a bed on the cardiac floor, and they took me to have a angiogram. And I've never had that. I've had heart problems for 24 years, but I've never had an angiogram. And so they wanted to see inside, if there was something inside. And they found a little bit something wonky, that the guy said. But normal people have sedation for an angiogram, and I did not, because I am allergic, like I said, to most pain medicines. And ones that do work just don't work for me at all. So I was fully awake through this. I had just had a complete heart workup. The 26th of December, the day after Christmas, I had a TEE. Again, unsedated. They stick a tube down your throat and look at the camera behind your heart. And I felt that. And my throat is still tore up from that. And everything was okay. There was no sense of having a pending heart attack. Anyway, I had the angiogram, and that's why I can't move this arm, is because I didn't take my band off. Anyway, they go in through your vein here and take a tube up into your heart and look at it, shoot dye into it and look at the heart that way. But you can't then move your wrist. I was part of a study of a new medical device that was like this band thing that they worked on. It was the first day that they ever used them, so everybody was fascinated with it. And we had the drug rep there that was, other medical rep there that was going over it, and I was strapped to this board kind of thing, and so I just was able to take that off last night, but I can't turn my wrist and all that kind of stuff, so I'm like having to do this, so I can't use this hand yet. But anyway, that's why my son is home, is if this bus opened, it's an arterial blood loss. So somebody has to be with me at all times for 4 days, I think, to babysit me. So this is day 2. Anyway, and he's off tomorrow, so, and then my husband's off the next day. So I've got everybody covering me, babysitting me for 4 days. So anyhow, my last part of my video is your life, my life, anybody's life is not worth this. Obviously, I lived for 45 years without knowing my father was somebody else. I lived for 45 years without knowing I had 5 brothers. My life was okay before this. And I explained what happened in my Facebook group, and I have to type with my left hand, so it took me an hour to explain what happened. And about 75% of the responses are negative. About 75% of the people have had negative experiences when it comes to this DNA stuff. Very rarely do you have a good outcome. Very rarely do you get wanted and accepted and have that warm fuzzy feeling when you find your family. Most of the time, it's a bad thing. And so I want to caution you all, because my next video is going to be with a 23andMe thing. And I want to caution you all that even if you're confident you know your parents, you may not know who your parents are. And so when you take these tests, be careful. In my explaining this to one of my DNA groups, 2 of us have had heart problems. One had a heart attack as well, and she ended up having to have surgery 6 weeks ago. So let's say there's 100 comments. 2 of us out of that 100 have had heart problems because of this. Some people, they can call it like a broken heart syndrome. Ultimately, my heart attack, all 3 of them, I've had 3 heart attacks. Even though this one felt differently, it was the exact same. They call it a grade 2 heart attack. It's caused by stress or outside factors, such as like if you take a certain medication that may cause it or whatever. Mine is caused, this particular one was definitely caused by stress with Graves' disease. I have tachycardia. My heart is beating like crazy at all times, and when I get all in this chihuahua mood and get crazy, upset, I, pretty much gave myself a heart attack, although I will blame this on the gatekeeper, and I will tell that to her face if I ever can. This was her fault. And I actually put it on Facebook saying, because of this message, each day what happened, that because of the message that, she kind of caused my heart attack. And she could see that, so I hope that makes her feel good. Anyway, so, with all that said, be careful. Nobody's ever told me to be careful about this. So you might find things about yourself that are fascinating. You might find out your ancestry, where you're from, and that's great. But remember, that's how I knew there was a problem, is I found out I was half Irish, and I shouldn't have been. I should have been half Polish and Russian. And knowing my ancestry is what caused all of this. And so I love Ireland. That's still my country. I'm good that I will eventually live there 3 months a year. But because of finding that out, I found out all this other stuff. And so this may not be a good outcome for you. So when you do these tests, just be careful. And your life is not worth it. My life is not worth this. And I've now decided that I'm just going to give up all hope of having contact with the 2 brothers that are controlled by the gatekeeper. I don't care about my father. Even if I don't have to deal with her, I really don't care about knowing him. I made that one attempt. Nothing was resolved, or he never even acted like he got it. Maybe he did not get my letter. And that was, like 2 years ago, I think now. And I don't care. I tried, sort of, and that was it. I'm done. My other 3 brothers, they don't want anything to do with him. They have very bad feelings against him. He left their mother for the gatekeeper, and they don't want anything to do with him. He had a bad life with them, it caused a bad life for them, and they don't want anything to do with him either. So I'm okay with that. I'm just going to invest in people that want to know me. My friends, those 3 friends, those are all I need. My husband and my children, that's all I need. My siblings that want to know me, that's all I'm going to invest from now on. When it comes to my father's family and getting together with them, they do the Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving. I'm not going to go to those anymore because of this one particular gossip person that liked to tell things that I never even said to the gatekeeper, I'm not going to go because she'll be there. However, there is a reunion of sorts. It's kind of like a cousin reunion. She will not be there, and it's in Vegas every year. And I probably will go to that one because she will not be there, and my 3 aunts and uncles are going to be there, and new cousins that I haven't met, they're going to be there. So I think I'm going to invest in that because my aunts and uncles have never done anything but be kind to me, and I love them. But everything else, I don't care. It causes too much stress, even though when I get there, everything's warm and fuzzy. But obviously it wasn't because they were talking crap about me. So I just think from now on, I'm only going to invest in what makes me happy and not do things I don't want to do anymore. If it gives me a tummy ache, I don't want to be a part of it. If it gives me chest pains, I'm not going at all. So that is that. I have another video that I'm going to do about the 23andMe, and I will see you guys soon. Hopefully this thing works so I don't have to get up. But thank you guys for watching.